Yeah, I like to say I take humor seriously, particularly since the pandemic. But even prior to the pandemic, it really worried me that we in the media, because I'm a journalist, we kind of can give people an unrelenting fire hose of negativity and conflict, and especially since the rise of social media, where you can be doom scrolling all day long if you want. And then we went into COVID, where everybody got ramped up and anxious beyond belief. Humor is a way to balance the scales a bit. It's a way of going, look, no, the world's not great. The world's not terrible either. So just relax. Just take the air out of things a bit. So yeah, I do write humor consciously for a purpose. If I'm just writing a humor column, if I'm not dealing with the news, I'll get as far away from the newsroom as I can. I like to write lying on my couch, which is my happy place, or outside my bike shop. Trek Bikes in Victoria West is a great place to write a column in the sunshine. Um, though sometimes I contend that satire is actually closer to traditional news writing than it is to pure whimsy or just, off the wall humor. Satire is basically news writing with some Stephen Leacock thrown in. And Canadians, it's a particularly Canadian form of humor. It's kind of the view from the outside looking in and seeing the incongruity of things, is what Leacock called it. Um, the things that others take for granted, and the people who live on the edges go, really? And you look at who the best satirists are. It's no mistake that Saturday Night Live was started by a Canadian, Lorne Michaels. The best satirists in Canada are probably, you get, Rick Mercer and the 22 Minutes crowd were all Newfoundlanders. Will and Ian Ferguson come from way up north in northern Alberta. So and Canadians, I think, are sort of the outsiders looking at the mainstream world in that way. So it's a very Canadian form of humor. It is one of those threads that we do have that ties us together. Um, Canadians often define ourselves by what we're not, but one of the things we are is dryly, sardonically funny. I have to say I've been in a tremendously privileged position for a very long time. I've had a prominent place within my community, within Vancouver Island and a few other newspapers that carried my column, that there's some really, really good writers out there who simply cannot get noticed. I've been in a privileged position for a long time. But yeah, I think there is an appetite for humor of all sorts. I think we just need the tension taken out right now. I always loved reading. I grew up outside of Kamloops. I delivered the province newspaper, and it was when Eric Nichol was in his heyday. Well, I loved Eric Nichol. He was a humor columnist for about 50 years or something crazy like that. I had a customer who said, I looked out the window this morning. I was so mad. My paper was late. I was wondering where it was. I looked out the window, and there were you sitting in a snowbank reading Eric Nichol's column in my newspaper, laughing your head off. I went, yeah, that's pretty much, that's where it comes from. I find myself coming back to the same themes again and again, and I'll realize I've written about how Victorians just fall apart completely at half an inch of snow. I've probably written that a dozen times in 25 years, so I'll combine those dozen columns into one longer piece and update it. And I've come to, there's great value in social media. It is also a cesspool of the scourge of our times is self-righteous, half-informed, judgmental, huffy, self-righteous indignation. Everyone is just so outraged all the time, and that is funny. You want to know what's funny? Human frailty is hilarious. In humor, almost all humor needs a target. I actually use myself a lot because I think I am, one of my strengths is I am common as dog dirt. I'm just an average guy with an average guy's frailties and problems. So I do like to use myself as the target a lot uh, because it works. But also I think people recognize themselves and their flaws in my failings and flaws as well. I always say I'm Homer Simpson with a typewriter. I am a total fanboy. I love authors festivals, not for taking part in them, which can actually be a little fraught sometimes because you're up there, you have to entertain and you have to be on. And I'm a print guy. I like my backspace delete button. I'm not one of those glib, pretty people, right? Um, but sitting back and listening to authors talk about themselves and their work, I can do that. I was at the Sunshine Coast Festival this summer. It was heaven from the crack of dawn till dark, all long weekend long. It was author after author after author, some of whom I'd never heard of, some of whom I'd been dying to see. And it was like a kid in a candy store. I loved it. I love festivals. I pulled back from the column writing. I'm 65 years old now, and I've been in a privileged position for a long time. I've been allowed to do so many, I'm allowed to poke my nose into places it doesn't belong and meet people who are far more interesting, more fascinating, wilder stories. And I got to meet a guy who used to go for milk and cookies at Adolf Hitler's house. And I interviewed the last guy in the world to speak his language. I interviewed a porn star in the nude. Her, not me. Barack Obama phoned me 4 days before he was elected president. So I've been in a great position for a very long time. I've had wonderful adventures. But you only have one life, and there's a lot of things that I want to do, and now's the time to do them. But I will have, it's going to start raining soon, and I'm going to start work on another book. I just don't know what it's about.